basically determine what's most important to Villanova as in regards to sustainability, and then use that information in our Villanova Sustainability Plan, which will be coming out at the end of this year. So let's get started. You guys may have heard of this meeting through your involvement with the town hall, the climate town hall that we had a couple Fridays ago. So this was just a good discussion that Villanova undertook to kind of raise the issue of climate change. And we're going to talk not just about climate change tonight, but about a wide range of sustainability issues and how they're related to each other. So, as I mentioned, the primary objective of our Villanova Sustainable Leadership Council, this is the objective of the council for this year, is to publish the sustainability plan by December. So, to do that, we need the input of a lot of stakeholders, such as yourselves, and we currently have the input of about 35 stakeholders, and they already performed the exercise that we're going to be performing tonight, and we're going to try to expand that to around 150 stakeholders, and that's why you're here, and that's why we're having this recorded, so that people can use this video to help them, guide them through the exercise and increase the number of stakeholders. So this was our original date, was last Wednesday, and we've had to cancel that date to today. And then we're going to have a second session in late March or early April. So, the vision that Villanova has decided on for our Sustainability Council is to establish an ethos of sustainability. And in order to do that, we've kind of taken inspiration from Laudato Si encyclical, which is Pope Francis's encyclical on care for our common home, basically. So it tells us why, as Catholics, we want to pursue sustainability. There's also business reasons why we want to pursue sustainability. And it aligns very well with the Villanova motto of Unitas, Veritas, Caritas, unity, truth, caring, and love. And so, finally, we've identified a framework, the UN SDGs, to help get us there. So here are the UN SDGs, and we're going to be working a lot with them tonight. So there are 17 UN SDGs. They go up to number 17 here. Then we've tacked on an 18th for Villanova, which we're calling Sustainability in Academics. You may notice that goal 4 is about quality education. And why do we need to add another one about education if we have that one already? So goal 4 is mostly about raising the level of education in the developing world, and especially access to that education for women and girls, and just making sure that everyone gets a basic education, not necessarily an education about sustainability. Whereas with goal 18, we're bringing that to Villanova, we're saying we as a university feel a responsibility to educate our students about specifically sustainability. So that's where goal 4 and goal 18 are different. We're going to be comparing these a lot tonight, and we have handout material to help you make your decisions. So here is the structure of the council. It was approved by the President's Cabinet in January 2018, so a little over a year ago. And we basically have the Leadership Council as a governance body that makes all the decisions with regards to sustainability. And then we have 4 committees within that council. Those are the Operations Committee, the Academics Committee, Social Justice, and Student Life. So we're really starting to get going this year because the Villanova Strategic Plan has just been ratified by the board, by the cabinet. So we are becoming an enabler in that strategic plan, and this council and committee body will help forward our sustainability and that vision, which is to establish an ethos of sustainability. So, as I already mentioned, the milestone or circle here is to publish the sustainability plan. But in May, we're going to publish, or at least have ready, a baseline score of how Villanova basically already performs in regards to sustainability metrics that we've developed. And then in August, we'll have a draft plan ready, and we'll basically have done some feasibility studies on the projects we want to complete, the sustainability projects that will basically improve our performance. And then after the publishing of the plan, we will complete some projects starting in May 2020, and we will talk about key results, which are basically like three-year milestones that we want to hit by 2021. So 2019, 20, and 21 will be our first round of key results. So what we're doing tonight is the first thing on this list. These are steps to publishing the sustainability plan. So you are all going to help us determine the importance of sustainability issues. And that's a materiality study. That's what we're doing tonight. After that, as I mentioned, we'll be doing a baseline score. So that's number 2, which will be measuring our current performance. We'll be setting objectives to improve our performance. And we will estimate how projects can improve our performance and achieve our strategic plan aspirations. So those are the 4 things we need to do to complete the plan this year, and you guys will be helping us do it tonight. So here is how kind of our methodology framework breaks down. Like I said, you'll be helping us with the materiality of the SDGs tonight. That will feed into our objectives. And those objectives are for 2030. That's what we want to have accomplished by 2030. That's the time frame of the SDGs. If you're familiar with the Millennium Development Goals, they range from 2000 to 2015. These Sustainable Development Goals, I'll be calling them the SDGs a lot. When you hear SDG, it's Sustainable Development Goal. When those were developed in 2015, that'll go from 2015 to 2030. And then we have metrics to actually measure our performance towards those objectives. And those will be the basis of the score that I mentioned that will be ready in May. And then as I discussed in the last slide, we're going to have key results for each rolling 3-year period. 2021 will be the end of the first period, and 2024, 2027, 2030. So that's how we're splitting up our goal setting. We have our long-term objectives, we have shorter-term key results. And once we complete all the key results, we should have necessarily completed our objective. And each goal will have an objective and have several key results. Does that make sense? And then, how do we actually achieve those key results? We do projects. So that's the last part of our methodology. Here's an example of how that will look for the climate change goal, which you should be most familiar with, especially if you're coming from the town hall on climate change. So, for example, our objective might be promote climate-conscious behavior while substantially reducing emissions associated with campus and supply chain emissions. Then how do we measure our progress towards that goal? We have 3 metrics. We have the percentage of our students who are taught about climate change. We have the existence of an integrated climate change strategy and disaster risk reduction assessment, which basically means, do we have a plan if sea level rises? Do we have a plan for all the effects of climate change and how they can impact our campus? And finally, the big one is our actual greenhouse gas emissions. That's how we're affecting climate change and bringing it about. So then we have key results. Key results will not be for every metric, but they will be aligned with a metric. So if there's a metric, it could have a key result in the first 3-year period, but we won't have a key result for every metric because we can't do 75 projects in 3 years. So we don't have a key result for every single one, but we'll have 1 to 2 per goal. And then finally, we'll do projects to complete those key results. So this is an example of how it would work for one of our major goals. Does anyone have any questions at this stage? The question is, what is MTCO2e? That's metric tons, of carbon dioxide equivalent. So there's a lot of different greenhouse gases, but you measure their equivalent global warming potential in comparison to CO2. So that's just a unit of global warming. So tonight, in order to do our materiality study, we're going to use a process called analytical hierarchy process. And we are going to evaluate some criteria against which we will then compare the goals. So the first set of criteria are the Villanova's spheres of influence. So that's the campus, Villanova's actual campus, that's a smallest sphere. And then the region, which includes Philadelphia area, Delaware Valley, and finally the global sphere. And we're going to
decide tonight basically which of these spheres is most important to us. And then after that, within those spheres, we're going to decide which of these categories of the 18 goals, how they stack up against each other. And then finally, within those goals, we'll compare within those categories, within those categories, we'll compare the individual goals against each other. So the three categories are prosperity, people, and planet. And they have a different number of goals in each. The planet category has clean water and sanitation. That's goal 6. It has climate change, which is the big one we're all familiar with. Goal 14 and 15 are both about biodiversity and habitat. So 14 is life below water. 15 is life on land. And then people has to deal with, there's poverty in there, there's hunger, health, education. Our goal 18 is in the people category. That's the one we created for Villanova, teaching our students about sustainability. And then finally, prosperity has to deal with, it's not just about the wealthy, it's about making sure that everyone has enough. So it's goal 8 is about decent work and economic growth. Goal 9 is about industry, innovation, and research. Goal 10 is reduced inequalities. Goal 12 is responsible consumption and production. That one has a close tie-in with the planet ones as well, because it's about, there's a lot of waste goals in there, or waste targets. And then finally, goal 17 is kind of like an all-encompassing goal. It's called partnerships for the goals. So it's really about making partnerships with different organizations to help us achieve the other goals. And we've bundled that one into the prosperity category. So I mentioned we're going to use this process. It's called Analytical Hierarchy Process, AHP. I'm going to be referring it to as AHP. And basically, it's great for what we're trying to do. It takes a qualitative decision, which is which goal is better. It takes each individual person's subjective view of that decision, combines them all, and gives you a quantitative result at the end. So we're going to show you the results of the other 35 people that have done this exercise. As I mentioned, there's 35 people who have already done it. We have a quantitative result, a list of the 18 goals, and a physical, like a weight, a percentage out of 100% of how each of those stack up against each other. So it helps us to make decisions down the line based on a subjective decision that each of you will make, okay? And it also, if you were to try to just take a piece of paper with 18 goals and weight them individually, break 100% down to 18 different ways for each goal, it's very difficult. So this process breaks that large decision into smaller decisions that are easier for everyone to make. So we're going to do an example to get you used to it, and we're going to use fruits and vegetables, and then we're going to move into the real materiality after that. So we're going to try to introduce you with this exercise to the scoring system that we use, which is a scale of 1/9 to 9. So I'll explain a little bit more what that scale is like. So you are comparing two things at a time, one against another. You're always going to be comparing the first thing as it relates to the second thing. So I like item A twice as much as item B. That's a score of 2. I like item A half as much as item B. That's a score of 1/2. So if you like the second thing better, you're going to be using a fraction. If you like the first thing better, you're going to be using an integer, a whole number. If you like each thing the same, that's a totally valid response, especially when we get into the SDGs and it's harder to make a decision between them. You can choose 1, and that means I like them both the same. So 1 is in the middle. 1/9 is you like the second thing way, way, way better, 9 times better. And if you score a 9, that means you like the first thing 9 times more than the second thing. Does everyone understand that? It's a little bit confusing, but that's why we're doing this practice exercise, get you used to it. So let's do that. If you have a smartphone or if you have a laptop, go to this URL, and Joey will activate the poll. And it's going to prompt you for your name. That's fine for this practice, but I think when we do the real one, we want you guys to put in...
the same name, so they have to put it in now.
Okay, yeah, so put in your name, but also put in your role within the university if you're a student, a faculty member, or a staff member. That'll help us do some disaggregation of data later. On the bottom here is the numbers. So the first comparison is apples versus oranges. So as you can see with the scale, if you like apples better, you're choosing on the left of the scale with a whole number. If you like oranges better, you're using fractions on the right. And the text is just examples of that again. So you can move through the survey at your own pace. We have slides to go for every single comparison here, but you can do it at your own pace. Just try to familiarize yourself with the type of the decisions that are being made and the scale itself. What you just did was compare 4 alternatives without a hierarchy like this shows. So what we're going to do next is we're going to introduce the hierarchy. We're going to introduce criteria layers. So this example shows a goal of choosing a leader, and the criteria for that has been identified as age, experience, education, and charisma. So the alternatives are compared against those criteria. But first, the criteria are compared against each other. So you develop weights for the layer of criteria, and then compare the alternatives, Tom against Anne, Tom against Harry, Anne versus Harry, with respect to each of the criteria. So we're gonna do that, and that actually reduces the number of total decisions we're gonna have to make, because we have 18 things. If we were to compare 18 against 17 against 16 against 15, etc., that'd be 153 comparisons. The way we've broken it down into the categories that I mentioned earlier, it's going to reduce that down to 64 comparisons. So that's kind of why we're using the hierarchy the way we're using it. And basically what's happening is your decisions are then being put into a matrix. We fill out the top corner, the top right corner of the matrix with the combination of everyone's decisions. And then the bottom corner are the flips of those answers. So if it's 9 in the top corner, it's 1/9 in the bottom corner. And then we do some matrix math on that, and we get a weight vector. So a list of weights from that math. You don't have to understand the math. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is weight the spheres of influence. And the spheres of influence are, as I mentioned before, the campus community, the regional community, and the global community. So we're going to move through that. That's only, I think, 4 questions. And remember, we're comparing the first response against the second response. And so we'll move through those one at a time. If you have questions, please let us know. Joey will activate the polls. And the first comparison is the campus against the region. So when we're doing this, we're thinking, how important are our Villanova's sustainability actions in one sphere versus the other sphere? Should we focus our resources in the campus sphere or the regional sphere?
I like to imagine, pretend you're the guy with the checkbook who's writing where the money's going to go for sustainability. Do you want more of your money to go to one versus the other? That's how you should think about this decision-making process.
Yeah. And now that we're moving into the real one as well, I should also mention the extremes, the 1/9 and the 9s and the 8s and the 1/8, those are extreme answers. So you have to feel very strongly if you're gonna choose one of those answers. We're generally sticking into the kind of the mid-range responses, the 5s to 1/5. If you feel very strongly, definitely use an extreme answer, but just know that if you're choosing a 9, that means you like the thing 9 times more than the other thing, and that's a lot. So campus versus region is first, then campus versus globe, and region versus globe. So it's only three decisions in this survey. The next thing we're going to do is weight the categories. We've called them institutional driver categories. They're basically the categories of the SDGs. This diagram shows how the categories break down again. Your packets also have information on all of the SDGs and show this diagram. So if you want to refer to those, please do. So the first one, what we basically have to do is we have to compare the categories against each other. Do you need we don't have another one, but we have these slides, if you want that. You're on the UN site? Okay. So basically, we have to compare these three categories against each other within each of those three spheres of influence. So first, we're going to say, within the campus sphere, which category is most important? The people, planet, or prosperity category. We're going to repeat that for the regional sphere and for the global sphere. So you might be thinking, why aren't they all the same? And a good example might be, you think the planetary goals are most important on the global scale, maybe. And a good example within that is the life below water goal. We don't have a lot of water on campus, so you might think that we shouldn't try to focus our efforts on campus towards that goal as much as we should focus our efforts globally towards that goal. So that's an example of how you might weight differently within the three spheres, but you might also think, they're all the same within each of the spheres. So it's up to you. So the first thing we're going to do is we're working right now in the campus sphere first. So within the campus sphere, how do you feel about the categories planet versus people? So is it more important to work on the planetary goals, those 4 goals, which are water, climate change, life below water, and life on land? Are they more important than the people goals within the campus, or vice versa? So for this, there's 3 questions. Remember, we're in the campus sphere. There's planet versus people, planet versus prosperity, and people versus prosperity. This diagram with the 3 categories on it has been developed by Johan Rockström. He's a prominent sustainability expert in Sweden. And this diagram is called the wedding cake diagram, which I think is funny. Okay, is everyone finished with those 3 comparisons? So next we're going to move to the regional sphere. And we're answering the same 3 questions, but now within the region. Like in Philadelphia, is it more important to funnel our resources into addressing planetary goals, people goals, or prosperity goals? So this is in Philadelphia in the Delaware Valley region. Okay. Does anyone need a little more time for this one? Anita, are you good? One more minute? Okay. Okay. So now finally, we're going to go into the global sphere and answer the same three questions again. So this might relate to how our research affects the world, how Villanova's engineering and nursing service learning programs might affect people outside of those two first spheres. So all of our outreach, how should our outreach funding be allocated basically towards these categories? So firstly is planet versus people, and then planet versus prosperity, and finally people versus prosperity.
This can include research as well, the effects
Research.
of research.
Yep. After we finish with this one, we're going to actually go within the categories now. So it looks like everyone's done. So the next thing we'll do is weight the goals within each of those three categories. And we did that last part 3 times, once for each of the 3 spheres, so that we don't have to do this part 3 times, because this part's longer. So first category we're going to look at is the planetary category. And now it's important to know what each of these goals are. I've said it a couple times, but let's just go over it again. You have your material in front of you if you want details about each of the goals. So we're going to be comparing these 4 goals against each other. So the 4 goals are clean water and sanitation, climate change, climate action it's called, life below water, and life on land. So we're just now we just have to compare these 4 against each other. We don't have to compare all 18 because of the hierarchy that we used. So Joey has started the survey, and we can go ahead. We don't have slides for each of these. If you need help, let me know.
Is there a page where climate action is sort of defined?
There is a page for each goal. So keep going.
Oh, gotcha.
You might have the.
Looks like he's got the wrong.
You have the slide deck, don't you?
I-
Can someone take 2 copies? We had 3 copies of this.
We haven't got the guide.
What do you want?
Is there? There's got to be a 3rd copy somewhere. I brought 3
Oh,
copies.
it's right here.
Joey's been hogging it.
Sorry, my bad.
Figured it'd be Joey.
So here's another copy.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry.
Okay. Great. It's at the end of the last survey, or is it a separate survey? Okay. Okay, I just want to make a note for anyone who's watching this video afterwards that Joey's been advancing the surveys, but if you're doing it by yourself, you're going to have a bunch of different links to each survey. So you're going to have to click on the different links to get to the different surveys in order. And we'll put them in order in our email that we send out. So if everyone's finished with those 6 decisions, we'll move on to the next one. And I just want to give a little reminder before we do that about the difference between goals 4 and goal 18.
I think 2 more, huh?
Okay. Okay, ready? All right, so the next one we're going to do is the people category. This one's going to be the longest. There's actually 36 decisions in this. So take your time, go through it slowly, but before we jump into it, I want to give a reminder of the difference between goal 4 and goal 18. Goal 4 was the one that the UN developed themselves. Goal 18 we developed. So goal 4 is about affordability and accessibility of education. Especially including women, like especially in the developing world, the Middle East, women aren't always given equal access to education. So this goal aims to address that, and especially those countries. Whereas goal 18 is about teaching Villanova students about sustainability, so that when you graduate as a Villanovan, you can say, I know what sustainability is, I will live my life maybe a little bit more sustainably, hopefully. So that's the difference between these two. This one is Villanova specific and specific to teaching about sustainability. Goal 4 is about improving the quality of education in the developing world. And we're also kind of interpreting that as improving the quality of Villanova's education, not about sustainability. We're kind of both for that one. So all of our classes that aren't about sustainability, making sure that people can get access to a Villanova education in general. So like scholarships and need-based aid and stuff like that. So let's jump into that survey. This one's going to take a little bit of time.
Like you said, it's really hard to choose.
Yeah, some of them you can't make a decision, just choose one.
One.
Another good thing about this, this technique that we're using is a lot of times when you're making decisions with a large group of people, some people have stronger opinions than others, and they're louder, and they make it known their opinion, and then that can influence other people to vote in a certain way, or maybe if you don't have a voting system, their voices just get lost in general. So this allows everyone's vote to have equal weight and doesn't let anyone influence anyone else. We have, at the end of this slideshow, we're going to show you how everyone else kind of, their results. But we haven't shown you that yet, so hopefully your answers are unbiased by that. How's everybody doing? Good. The next one's not so long, so this is the longest one. Another note for the people online, the people here in person have packets with all the information about each of the goals. We'll make sure that you have the packet in digital form when you get the email with the video. So refer to one of the links, which will be this packet, this handout that shows all of the information on the goals and and these slides that show which goals are being compared, et cetera. Is everyone set? Are you ready? Yeah? Okay. So that was 36 questions with nine alternatives. This next one only has 5 alternatives, so I think it's 10 questions. So you can take a little break if you like, and then we can move through this last one. We're comparing Goal 8, which is decent work in economic growth. Goal 9, industry innovation and infrastructure. That also includes some research elements. Goal 10 is reduced inequalities, so making sure Father Peter doesn't get paid 100, 200 times more than our minimum wage employees. Goal 12 is about responsible consumption and production. Also, this goal 12, has a lot of waste targets involved in it. And goal 17 is the partnerships goal, like I mentioned earlier. So 10 more questions and then we'll be ready to end, and we can show you the results from the previous stakeholders. All right, is everyone finished? Not quite? Okay, almost. Yeah, yeah, no rush. We have plenty of time. Okay, so that completes the surveys online. We're going to do another survey at the very end about how you felt about this, but does anyone have any questions about what we just did? Anything that,
So, yeah, I mean, someone asked this already, but it seems sort of difficult to compare some of these things. A lot of it's interrelated. One thing I found, and there's no way to like, if you select something, you can't unselect it.
you can. So yeah, this is good because we'll get it on recording. If you scroll all the way down to the bottom, there's a clear previous response button. I hope that didn't influence many of your choices.
There's like one I can remember.
Okay.
But, I think
Yeah, sometimes it is hard to distinguish, is this a 2 or a 1 or 1/2? It's close, and we'll see kind of how that may have affected some people if they're on the fence. We'll show the results in a second. Some different groups have inherent biases, so the more people we get to take this exercise and do this exercise, the more that effect is kind of washed away and diluted.
And the idea is to come up with like a consensus through all of this.
Well, we don't even need a consensus. We take all your views and we boil them down and we get a result. People don't even have to agree. They will, they're basically, let me show you. So this is how the list comes out for all the 35 people. This is the combined list. You get a percentage weight out of 100% for each of the 18. And the colors correspond to the categories, so people, planet, and prosperity. Green is planet. You can see climate change was rated as our top goal. And right below that was clean water. So all the green goals were deemed important by our 35 people who have taken it so far. And that's because in the beginning, they weighted that category highly. So that category, the planet category, got a lot of weight. And then kind of the blue goals got stuck towards the bottom for the opposite reason. Their category, if you can see on that pie graph, the blue is not a very large chunk of the total. So each of those individual ones got lower on the list. So you don't even need people really to agree because that's all done by the math, by combining everyone's answers. Any other questions? Because if someone was watching the video, they can't ask a question, so you have to ask them for them.
So you're going to decide your focus based on these?
Yes, so this is real data that we're collecting. We have combined all these. We're going to use your responses as well. That'll be factored into these numbers. And then basically what's going to happen is these weights will affect the importance of the score that we get for each of the goals. So we're gonna use the metrics. Remember I said there was materiality, then there was objectives and metrics. So we're gonna use the metrics to compute a score for each goal, and that score will get weighted with these percentages. So if we're not doing so well in climate change, and that's our top goal, that's gonna hurt us more than if we weren't doing so well in partnerships, which is our bottom goal. So it'll help us to allocate resources effectively to alleviate our biggest problems in the biggest problem areas, basically. So this is how it looked for everyone combined, but it's interesting to look at how our 3 different groups were different from each other. So we have students. There's a group of about 10 to 12 students that took this. The council, which is our overall governance body, about 20 people. And then 5 PESC members. PESC was the previous Environmental Sustainability Committee, President's Environmental Sustainability Committee. So you can see for PESC, all 4 of the green goals are at the top. So they weighted the environmental side very highly. The council weighted the blue goals very low. And the students kind of had the best mix of all, I shouldn't say best, but the goals were the most mixed by the students. So that's why we asked you to put in staff, faculty, or student on your survey. And we can continue to do this with the new participants to see if this trend kind of continues. So I thought that was an interesting comparison, but you can also notice climate change or climate action is at the top for the students and the council, and is actually the bottom of the category for the PESC members, which I thought was very interesting, but it's still the fourth highest goal there because that whole category had such a high weight. So let's just wrap up really quickly. So we're going to use your responses, as I said, to calculate results. We can't do that quickly tonight. We can't show you your results right now because it involves a little bit of math. But we will calculate the results, and we will be using them in our planning. And we can, I don't know if we'll send you your individual results, but we can you'll be able to see the results of the combined groups when we publish our plan, for sure. Great. So thank you all for coming out. It's important that we got some audience questions because, like I said, people, if they're watching, can't ask a question. So hopefully that got all the questions that could be asked. And
Sorry, do you have any stakeholders outside of Villanova?
outside of Villanova, not yet. There were some people that attended the town hall that were interested in giving their feedback. So Radnor Township members. And they may be receiving the email with the video. They could come to our second session, which will be late March, early April. If you're watching the video and you didn't understand something and you want to come to that second session, we'll have it, like I said, either late March or early April. We'll get some more information out to you about that. So thank you all for coming. Oh, right. We want to get your feedback on this session. So we have one more survey.
Or about sustainability at Villanova in general, if you have anything you're particularly passionate about.
Yeah, so there's more steps to this process after the materiality. We have our projects and stuff. So if you want to suggest a project that you're very passionate about, we will put it into our reckoning.